The Texas Parks and Wildlife television series is funded in part by a grant from the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program. Through your purchases of hunting and fishing equipment and motorboat fuels, over $50 million in conservation efforts are funded in Texas each year. And by Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, helping to keep Texas wild with the support of proud members across the state. Find out more at tpwf.org. Additional funding provided by Ram Trucks. Guts, glory, Ram. Coming up on Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Bumblebees are great pollinators because bees deliberately collect pollen.
Millions of birds cross the Texas coastline each spring and fall during migration, and the question is, why would you put a wind farm in a site like that?
So no matter what your skill level of mountain biking, we have really something for everybody here at Brazos Bend.
Texas Parks and Wildlife, a television series for all outdoors.
Maybe up here.
Jessica Beckham is on a quest
See all sorts of things flying around.
to catch some fuzzy flying insects.
No bumblebees, though.
With great bee expertise,
That's a sweat bee.
she searches.
I think those are so pretty. That's not what I'm trying to catch today.
The bees that beckon are bumblebees.
Today we are out here serving bumblebees in a little roadside area of Denton County. That's an American bumblebee right there.
Jessica has been studying bumblebees at the University of North Texas while pursuing a PhD in environmental science.
Here in Texas, we have sweat bees, digger bees, leafcutter bees, resin bees. About 700 to 800 species of bees that are native bees, including 9 species of bumblebees. Usually when people think of bees, they think of honeybees, but honeybees are actually non-native species. Honeybee declines have been noted in the news.
Back in 2005, we started hearing about a phenomenon called colony collapse disorder. Unusual numbers of honeybees were dying off, and nobody understood quite why.
In these troubling times for honeybees, Jessica wanted to understand how native bees are doing.
I'm studying native pollinators, bumblebees in particular, because native pollinators might serve as an insurance policy against these losses of honeybees.
Bees are critical to the food supply.
Bees pollinate cherries, apples, almonds, onions, and many other crops.
They pollinate billions of dollars of crops each year.
Insect pollinators in particular are responsible for about 80% of the pollination of wildflowering plants and about 75% of our agricultural plants. Bumblebees are great pollinators because bees deliberately collect pollen, and they have a lot more hair than honeybees, and they move a lot of pollen from flower to flower. I don't know what they are. I will take about a 15-minute walk through this big patch of flowers to determine what species are here and ultimately look at the persistence of these species in our area. Got another one.
Studying bumblebees takes time and some fast reflexes.
I feel like I struck out.
But field work is the fun part, right?
It's hot. I mean, you get chiggers and ticks. Sometimes you see a bee and you don't catch it. Really, though, it's pleasant work for me. Now I got her. This is Bombus pennsylvanicus, which is known as the American bumblebee. This is our most common species here in Texas, but nationally this species is declining. And so the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department has designated this a species of greatest conservation need. You ready to go, girl?
Texas Parks and Wildlife has helped fund the research,
There you go.
in part through sales of conservation license plates.
We've received a horned lizard license plate grant as well as a state wildlife grant.
To understand Texas bumblebee trends, Jessica compares her surveys with specimens at the Elm Fork Natural Heritage Museum at UNT, where the bumblebee collection spans 60 years.
Museum collections provide a rich resource for determining historic presence of lots of different species.
The comparisons have been encouraging.
What we found is that the current presence of bumblebees here in Northeast Texas is almost identical to the historic presence. About 85% of our roadside sites had at least one bumblebee.
Further research has examined bumblebee genetic diversity and the kinds of urban habitats they use.
I looked at 8 different sites, some community gardens, an organic garden.
Are any of them blooming at this point?
Some urban wild spaces as well. We want to know what types of green spaces are good for bees, and also how we can manage our green spaces as we grow cities.
The research suggests ways we can help pollinators in public spaces like roadsides and even in our own backyards.
You want to try and have flowers that are blooming all the way from about March to October here in Texas, because bumblebees are active throughout that time. And you also would do well to avoid the use of pesticides, because not only are they effective in killing your pest species, but they also are bad for your pollinator species.
Jessica has completed her studies and is Dr. Beckham now, but her work will continue to benefit bee conservation.
American bumblebee.
As if a sign of gratitude, the hundreds of bees she handled kept their stingers to themselves.
I've never been stung by a bumblebee, surprisingly.
Since they help our food and flowers grow, maybe we all owe some thanks to the humble bumblebee.
Yay for bumblebees.
Texas leads the nation in wind energy production. With little regulatory oversight in place, this new industry can build wherever there's good wind.
We need to change where we're getting our energy sources. We will have to locate wind turbines in places that are precious to lots of people.
And here on the coast, where the wind may be strong, it's also home to the Central Flyway, a major migratory bird corridor.
Millions of birds cross the Texas coastline each spring and fall during migration, and the question is, why would you put a wind farm in a site like that?
Songbirds like the hooded warbler, to migrating raptors like these Swainson's hawks, to the threatened reddish egret. Hundreds of species either live on the coast or migrate through Texas, as it sits squarely in the Central Flyway, a migration route from breeding grounds in the north to winter quarters in the south. And in this same area, wind farms set up to capitalize on these prime coastal winds.
The real concern is not the day-to-day collisions that might take place, but the circumstances that might create a major migratory bird fallout, where you have a storm and literally thousands of birds trying to find a place to land and flying through the middle of a wind farm.
One wind farm that's concerned about the birds in the Central Flyway is the Penascal wind plant, situated on the Kennedy Ranch along Baffin Bay.
The wind blows hard here in South Texas, everybody knows that, but the wind blows hard when everybody needs it the most. So it's almost a perfect location in terms of customer demand.
We can have well over 100 species at one time in these moths.
Huh.
Penascal staff biologist Jim Sinclair studied the property for 4 years before any of the 82 wind turbines went up.
When they're coming in, they come in very high.
And one top priority was to keep the turbines away from these sheltered bird resting spots called oak moths.
This is where the songbirds will stop to rest and feed during the daytime during migration. But one of the reasons for creating a buffer around these oak moths for the turbines is it's going to significantly reduce the chance of of strikes because the birds concentrate in the oak mottes. And yeah, there are times when there can be a lot of birds in here.
Yeah?
Working to reduce bird strikes even more is Merlin.
And we can see some low-level bird activity occurring.
This radar system can see what birds are coming from 4 miles away.
We can actually see the turbines, and we can see the birds as they move around the turbines. Most of what we're detecting today, the birds are moving above the wind farm at above 500 feet.
Now the magic of Merlin, it has the capability to actually shut off the turbines if birds fly into the wind farm.
The radar itself generates a curtailment command, and within less than 1 minute, all of the turbines will be turning at less than 1 RPM, very, very slowly, and within 5 minutes, all of them are completely stationary. The ability to shut down the turbines under abnormal conditions is what really helps turn wind energy into truly green energy.
Will the cost of turning off the turbines be so high that they won't do it? And so the real issue is not so much whether or not they can do it, it's whether or not they will.
That's just one of the questions on the minds of both Andy Kastner and wildlife biologists from Texas A&M Kingsville.
Boy, this strong south wind probably had some good movement.
So right next door on the neighboring King Ranch, they are using another Merlin to monitor the birds as well.
It's a user-friendly screen with biological targets moved in.
Andy is here to meet research scientist Bart Ballard to get a feel for just how many birds could be affected by further wind development along the coast.
Well, our main objectives for this study are to assess how many birds travel through this area, the altitudes they fly, how weather affects their flight characteristics. There's potential for some pretty large impacts.
This study, funded in part by Texas Parks and Wildlife, will look at several migration seasons, a bird count before more wind development arrives.
Because of the tax credits that are available to wind energy production, it's beneficial for them to develop a site as quickly as they can and to get the wind turbines up and running. But the flip side of that, you don't have time in that case to do adequate scientific studies to monitor and make decisions based on wildlife impacts and whether or not that site is safe for wildlife.
Back at the office,
It's interesting, these peaks.
Bart crunches the numbers, and in one fall migration, Merlin counted 3 million birds coming through the corridor in just 3 months.
I think during most of the time, I think these birds are flying high enough and have good visibility. It's not going to be an issue. It's those times when they do migrate, when it's foggy out, their visibility is very poor, and we think it pushes them down at a lower level, lower altitude when they're flying. Those are the conditions we're concerned about, at least in terms of some development along the coast.
We're going to be able to observe large avian movements during a variety of weather conditions that we've never been able to see before.
There are wind farms using the latest technology.
And if we can make sure that we're doing it in the most responsible way, taking it very, very seriously, that is one way to help us clean up our energy supply.
Scientists
So we have 14 reddish egrets.
and their long-term studies on protecting these Texas treasures.
Our hopes with this research is that it'll be used in the future to help cite some of this development where it has less impact on our bird populations.
We just have to make sure that the individual developers make the right sorts of siting decisions. That's really what it boils down to in Texas or anywhere else.
Chances are this new renewable energy source is here for good. And now it's up to us to make sure it stays green.
Wish you could spend more time with nature? Well, every month you can have the great outdoors delivered to you. Since 1942, Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine has been the outdoor magazine of Texas. Every issue is packed with outstanding photography and writing about the wild things and wild places of this great state. And now Texas's best outdoor magazine is available as an app. It's just that easy. Texas Parks and Wildlife Magazine, your connection to the great outdoors.
Hi, I'm Andy Glusenkamp. I'm the state herpetologist for Texas Parks and Wildlife, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Texas rat snake. The Texas rat snake is the most commonly encountered snake in Texas, and they occupy a wide range of habitats. This snake is harmless, they're completely non-venomous, they don't attack people, in fact they're major rodent predators, hence the name rat snake. Probably the best way to tell a rat snake from a venomous snake in Texas is to look at the head shape. Pit vipers, which includes copperheads, cottonmouths, and rattlesnakes, they tend to have a very chunky head with steep sides to the face. Whereas if you look at the head of a rat snake, the head tends to be more rounded and less angular. This snake is in the process of shedding. During that process, we call them in the blue. The individual will get an opaque color to its skin, its eyes become milky blue. It's not sick or injured, they just need a few days to find a quiet place to hang out while they shed their old skin to reveal a new fresh layer underneath. Rat snakes get a bad rap. They're large snakes, they're frequently encountered, they're not particularly friendly, but I'd like to point out that their primary diet is mice, rats, and other rodents. That's a pretty beneficial snake to have around. So, 3 things to remember about the Texas rat snake. They're the most commonly encountered snake in Texas, they're completely harmless, and they're beneficial.
I am spreading what amounts to chicken scratch.
Brett Collier is trying to tempt some turkey.
We'll have birds out here probably tomorrow.
He's setting out breakfast and setting up a trap, all to learn more about the birds.
We bait up an area and we set up a trail camera. We set up a big net, stretch her out, and we wait and see if the birds are coming to the bait.
Fortunately, Brett has some help.
1, 2, 3.
There's a lot of different organizations that are all pitching in. Texas A&M, you have Parks and Wildlife, ranch personnel.
You could not find a better place to have a collaborative relationship between a university, a state agency, and a private landowner than right here where we are in Duval County. Come in, all those.
This high-tech turkey work is taking place on the Temple Ranch, 2 hours south of San Antonio.
Good job.
Being open to research is just one way the ranch works to enhance turkey habitat.
In the last few years, we've had some pretty rough droughts here in South Texas, and we've lost, I'd say, up to 50 to 70% of our hackberries, which is the main roost tree here in this part of South Texas for turkeys. So what we're trying to do, we're putting up some artificial roosts in place of the hackberries that have died due to drought, and they're really getting some good use out of them.
More traditional improvements like brush management and the use of prescribed fire have also helped wildlife here. But fully understanding what Rio Grande turkey need requires being aware of their every move. For Brett and crew, that means some very early work days in this high-rise office of sorts.
We get up about 4:45 in the morning, make sure that everything's working, and then we wait on the birds to come in. Wow. It's a good number of hens. 25 or 30 in sight right now. And there's a flock of about 15 males. Look at that. Our primary focus is to look at the habitat use of Rio Grande wild turkeys in South Texas.
There's a lot that goes into it, but it only takes just a couple seconds to happen.
When the net goes off, our primary goal is always the safety of the bird. Drop, 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 drop.
It's pretty exciting when that net drops.
Any birds on the edge? That corner? It is very fast and furious. Roll them up underneath if you need to.
We try to do it as fast as we can and reduce stress on the birds.
What took you guys so long? Okay.
It's quite a rodeo sometimes.
Good work, everyone. We're gonna leg band about 10 of them, maybe 12, and then transmit the rest.
Putting leg bands on them, putting radio collars on them, or backpacks in this case.
Yeah, go ahead and grab it.
Tying it.
Go ahead and grab one more out of here. We put a backpack transmitter on them that we can use to follow the birds around. And currently we've developed some that are using GPS technology.
Frequency number 151, 340.
You can use that information to identify habitat.
Traditional tracking technology only allows locating an animal when a biologist is available to go look for it.
The transmitter emits a beep, we can receive that beep, we can home in on an individual and figure out where they're at and triangulate and kind of determine what type of habitat types they're located in. Just down the road here.
But this requires manpower and does risk disturbing the birds.
He's on the move. We're pushing him.
Newer GPS technology allows much more location data to be collected unobtrusively.
It's not us going out once or twice a day saying, well, there's the bird at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's the bird at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We can tell where they're going on their time frame.
We can map daily movements, seasonal movements. We can identify the core areas the birds like to spend their time in. We can really do a lot of neat stuff. And to be honest, we're really probably just scratching the surface with some of the things we could do with this type of information.
Now with this project, we're learning where they like to nest, where they like to roost, where they like to raise broods. It's really helping us out to where we need work on certain spots of the ranch.
Let her loose.
The research is ongoing, but the findings are already shedding new light on what turkey need to succeed.
We're happy with how it's going.
We're getting better at answering the question, what do these landowners need to do to really provide quality habitat? I think whenever we're done here in a couple of years, we'll have something really valuable for the people of South Texas and hopefully Texas in general.
Hi, I'm David Heineke, Park Ranger here at Brazos Bend State Park, and we've got some of the best mountain biking trails in the Houston area. Let's go check them out. Here at Brazos Bend State Park, we have over 35 miles of multi-use hiking and biking trails here in the park. We have narrow single-track trails that weave up and down through the forest. We have nice wide gravel trails that are more family-friendly.
Yeah, it's a real beautiful park.
So no matter what your skill level of mountain biking, we have really something for everybody here at Brazos Bend. The Elm Lake Trail is one of the best places to come out and see the wildlife in the park. With the lake on one side and the marsh on the other side, the amount of wildlife out here is just fantastic. It's not uncommon to see 8 and 10-foot alligators right on the side of the trail here. These are the trails along the Brazos River. They're a little more suitable for the more advanced rider. They're single-track dirt trails. They've got some topography changes, so you get some ups and downs, some drop-offs, some hairpin curves. So they offer a little more challenge to the mountain biker. Come on out to Brazos Bend State Park. With over 35 miles of mountain biking trails, we've got a trail that's suitable for everybody. And what's even better is we're less than an hour's drive away from Houston. So come on out and join us.
This series is funded in part by a grant from the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program. Through your purchases of hunting and fishing equipment and motorboat fuels, over $50 million in conservation efforts are funded in Texas each year. And by Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, helping to keep Texas wild with the support of proud members across the state. Find out more at tpwf.org. Additional funding provided by Ram Trucks. Guts, Glory, Ram.